Hi, my name's Leah. I'm from Creative Arts East and I'm going to be telling you more about how to manage data safely. So by data, we mean specifically personal data. And if you work at an organisation, you may come across personal data and it's your responsibility to look after that in the right way. So there's something called GDPR, or General Data Protection Regulation. It's a framework that tells you how to correctly store, process and dispose of data. And the data that needs protecting is personal data. So that includes name, address, age, gender, or any information which could possibly use to identify a living individual. So it could even be a photograph of somebody. That's something you need to protect. And also it could be a contact email address, possibly. So here's an example of some personal data and an example of anonymized data, which doesn't trace back to an individual. Sometimes organizations use codes in place of personal data, and those codes can trace back to an individual. That sort of data still needs protecting, so you need to make sure that that sort of data is secured and stored in the right way as well. So here are some suggestions and things to follow whilst you're working from home and also whilst you're in the office as well. Don't leave any papers with any personal data around or freely in sight. There's some examples of what that personal data could be, and make sure you store those papers in a cupboard or drawer, ideally somewhere that you can lock and it's in a secure and safe place. With computer screens, you have to be mindful with who might be looking at your screen too, so make sure that when you're viewing something with data on it, that you're in a suitable environment to view that data. And it's good practice to lock your screen too, so no passers-by can see. Close down any online documents once you're done with them, and make sure that you put away your laptop securely too. You don't need it. And make sure your computer or laptop or papers in your car or outbuilding are not left there. And finally, disposing of data, that needs to be done correctly. So in the office, if we had any hard copy data, we'd shred it, and normally we don't have anything at home, but don't put it in the rubbish or recycling straight away. Make sure that you shred it first before you do that. Just a few other things I wanted to touch upon too, which might be helpful. Firstly, emails. So let's say you wanted to send a group email out to a number of emails. You found a whole load of contact email addresses and you want to spread the word about an event that's happening. What you would do, and I'll show you now, is BCC them into an email rather than put them beside this bar, beside the to, or the CC, the carbon copy. The way it works on this is you'd click this and there would be BCC with a bar beside it, and that's where you just paste all those contact email addresses that you found. That way, when you send the email to a bulk of email addresses, then the people receiving it will only see their own name or their own email at the top of the email, and they won't see anyone else that's received the email. So that's something to be aware of when doing group emails. Next, data consent. That's really important too. So we have to make sure that people whose data we have or we're collecting, they're aware of where that data will go. and sometimes we share that, so they need to opt in or opt out. So they've got an option. If they don't want to share that data with us, then they don't have to. The option's there. And also, if we do want to share that data, for example, we may have some volunteers who want to do some contact calling and will need some contact numbers. We need to make sure that they fill in a GDPR data consent form so that they're fully aware of how to store that data and how to dispose of that data when it's no longer needed to. Thirdly, save everything in a secure place. So can't stress this enough. Once you've finished with a document, or you finished looking at something, make sure that it's saved in a secure place. Make sure you regularly change your password too, for that extra layer of security. And I'll show you too. Google Sheets, which is an online sheet. If you have some personal data on this, you can save it, and you can also share it and choose to share it with particular people. So you can write that down there. Also, you can share the link with anyone who receives it, or you can change that to restricted, so only people that you've added up here can view the document, and then anyone with a link, they can also be the viewer, commenter or editor. So that's also something worth knowing. And then finally, I wanted to just mention managing and storing data safely at events. So just make sure, if you're attending an event with, let's say, a register with people's names and numbers, make sure you know where those registers are at all times, they don't go astray, and you dispose of them once you no longer need them after the event too. And when collecting data via feedback forms after an event has finished, again, make sure you collect them all up, none of them go astray, and you dispose of them correctly once you no longer need them. So pop them in the shredder so they can be recycled. And that's pretty much everything I can think of with regards to GDPR and storing data safely. Normally, for each organisation or any organisation, there's someone that's in charge of GDPR, a data protection officer or lead. So if you have any other questions, it's worth going to them. Thanks, I hope that helped.